2017 was the year of the notch. 2018 was the year of triple lens camera modules and an even thinner notch and the further reduction of the bezels in smartphones, and 2019 is turning out to be a very, very exciting year, the year of not just 5G smartphones but also the world's first foldable smartphones. And the whole idea here is that you have a small tablet around the same size as an iPad mini that can actually fold, just like a piece of paper, and turn into a smartphone when you need something that's more portable, and then unfold back into a tablet for when you need something with a larger display. Pretty much everyone is working on foldable smartphones today, even me, no, just joking, Samsung, Huawei, LG, Xiaomi, even Apple, but not everyone has unveiled their foldable smartphones to the world just yet. So it's mostly been Royale, Samsung, Huawei, Xiaomi, TCL, and Oppo at this point, and all of those, Samsung and Huawei are the best ones out there, so here's how they compare to each other. And by the way guys, I'm actually doing another giveaway at the end of this video, so yeah, stay tuned for that. It's a pretty exciting one, way better than last week's, because last week was already pretty good, but yeah, grab some snaps, and here's everything you need to know in terms of the Samsung Galaxy Fold versus the Huawei Mate X in terms of the design, display, specs, camera, special features, release date, price, battery, and pretty much everything you need to know. Okay, so starting off with the design first, even though they're both foldable smartphones, in reality they're actually completely different. So the Samsung Galaxy Fold has the folding hinge in the middle of the device and it folds inwards, while the Huawei Mate X folds outwards, but not really in the middle. So one side of the fold is actually smaller at 6.38 inches, while the other one is larger at 6.6 inches, and I'll cover this more in the display section of this video. Now most of you probably think that it doesn't really matter which way it folds because, you know, it's still a fold, but it actually changes the way the device works entirely. So the Huawei Mate X, when in phone mode, since it folds outwards, it actually uses half of the tablet's display as the phone's display, which means that you get the same bezel-less design that you get in tablet mode. Now the downside here is that since flexible displays have to be made out of plastic rather than glass, they are more prone to scratches, and having a display that folds on the inside is actually better in this regard because, you know, it's protected by the back of the phone, which is on the outside. So the Galaxy Fold, on the other hand, does fold on the inside, which does mean that the display is protected, but this also means that in phone mode, Samsung had to add another display panel just for that. And this one is quite weird because look at those bezels. Look at those bezels. Those are some really thick ones. Those are the thickest bezels that I've seen, even thicker than in the original iPhone. That's crazy. It is made out of Gorilla Glass, so the outer display is more resistant to scratches, but you will be using these devices, the Galaxy Fold and the Huawei Mate X, completely differently. So the Galaxy Fold is pretty much a tablet that folds and has a tiny display on the back. That's pretty much what it is. You don't really want to use this thing in phone mode just because of how tiny that display is, so you would mostly use this thing in tablet mode. The Huawei Mate X, on the other hand, can indeed be fully used in phone mode since you're getting the exact same display that you get in tablet mode, just, you know, folded in half. Obviously, the best case scenario here is a display that folds on both the inside as well as the outside, since, you know, then you would actually get the best of both worlds. But overall, when it comes to the design alone, the Mate X looks as if it's about 2 to 3 years ahead of Samsung. It just looks so futuristic with no thick bezels in phone mode. Also, there is no notch on this thing in tablet mode at all, like we have on the Galaxy Fold, so it's just such an amazing design. I don't think anyone would argue that the Mate X is the much better looking one of the two. The Galaxy Fold actually looks very similar to the Nokia communicators from back in the day, with that clamshell landscape design, if you guys remember that, and the tiny display on the outside. Also, the Galaxy Fold is noticeably thicker than the Mate X's, so the Mate X is 5.4 millimeters thin when unfolded, and obviously double that, 10.8 when unfolded. I'm not 100% sure about the thickness of the Galaxy Fold as of yet because Samsung hasn't disclosed the dimensions, but it is said to be between 17 to 20 millimeters when folded. Next up we have the displays, because the displays are also very, very different. So on the Galaxy Fold, in tablet mode we have a 7.3 inch OLED display with a resolution of 2152 by 1536 or PPI of 414. On the Mate X in tablet mode we have an 8 inch OLED display, so quite a bit bigger than the Galaxy Fold one, and a resolution of 2490 by 2200, which translates, interesting enough, to PPI of 415, so just 1 PPI higher. Now when it comes to the phone mode, on the Galaxy Fold we get a 4.6 inch OLED display in phone mode. So yeah, this has a very wide aspect ratio as well, 21:9, which actually makes everything looks even smaller than it already is on the Galaxy Fold. Also, the good news is that this is indeed a Gorilla Glass 6 display, so like I said before, it's more resistant to scratches than the display on the outside of the Mate X because that's made out of plastic. On the Mate X, on the other hand, in phone mode, we have a 6.6-inch OLED display on one side, and then 6.38 inches on the other. We have two displays in phone mode because, like I said before, it folds on the outside. Also, the aspect ratio is 19.5:9, not as wide as the Galaxy Fold, which actually means that you get to see more detail and more stuff on the phone display. Now, something that I do have to address are display folding creases. So those have actually been noticeable on both models, but pretty bad on the Mate X. So I've seen images, many images and videos actually, with those creases, the folding line or whatever you want to call this thing. But yeah, pretty much this thing ruins the display in tablet mode. It wasn't that bad on the Galaxy Fold, but it was still quite noticeable there as well. Way more noticeable on the Mate X, by the way. Now, Vlad Savo from The Verge was actually one of the first few people that had some actual hands-on time with the Mate X, and he said that in terms of the panel itself, the viewing angles, the contrast, the color reproduction, the uniformity, everything looked pretty much as good as you'll find in other smartphones today, with even less reflectivity, interesting enough, on the Mate X plastics display versus a glass display that you'll find in most smartphones today. And the same thing applies to the Galaxy Fold in terms of the display quality. So yeah, overall it goes without saying that the Huawei Mate X not only has a much better design, but also a much better display due to the significantly larger size that you get in phone mode, and you still get a larger display in tablet mode as well, without any notch as well. Now let's talk about the performance. So on the Galaxy Fold, we have the Snapdragon 855 processor. Now, interesting enough, there is no variant, no model of the Galaxy Fold running on the Exynos 9820 processor, which is made by Samsung, like we have on the international versions of the Galaxy S10. On the Mate X, we do have the Kirin 980 processor, which is actually the same one as in the Huawei Mate 20 Pro. Okay, but which processor is actually better? Well, they're actually both based on a 7-nanometer process. They're both ARM processors. The Snapdragon 855 has one overclocked Cortex A76 core at 2.84 GHz. It also has three A76 cores at 2.42 GHz and also four low-power Cortex A55 cores at 1.8 GHz. The Kirin 980, on the other hand, it has two Cortex A76 cores at 2.6 GHz, two Cortex A76 cores at 1.92 GHz, and then four low-power Cortex A55 cores at 1.8 GHz. So yeah, as you can see, the 855 Snapdragon is indeed a more powerful processor, which is also obvious from the Geekbench scores, Geekbench 4 scores benchmarks that we've seen before. Now, realistically, they're still pretty close to one another, so you won't really be noticing that much of a difference in day-to-day usage. Now, when it comes to the RAM, on the Galaxy Fold, we have 12 gigabytes, not even joking, 12 gigabytes of RAM in a phone. On the Mate X, we have 8 gigabytes. So yeah, the Galaxy Fold takes this one. When it comes to the storage, we have 512 gigabytes as the baseline and the only option actually on both. In terms of the battery, we have a 4380 mAh battery on the Galaxy Fold and 4500 mAh on the Mate X. Now, the Galaxy S10 Plus 5G, that model comes with a 4500 mAh battery, and that one comes with a smaller 6.7-inch display, smaller than both of these in tablet mode. And yeah, because of this, the battery life itself can be concerning on the Mate X especially, and then also on the Galaxy Fold. I mean, yes, the Mate X does have a slightly larger battery than the Fold does, but like I said before, keep in mind that it is not only larger 8-inch display versus 7.3-inch in tablet mode, but it also has a significantly larger 6.6-inch display versus 4.6 inches when in phone mode. So yeah, overall, the Galaxy Fold should last you longer. Now, let's talk about the cameras. Everyone loves cameras, everyone loves taking photos, lots of photos, so which one has a better camera? Well, definitely subscribe notifications for the full in-depth camera comparisons as soon as these phones come out, because none of them have been released, but when it comes to the specs at least of the cameras, the Galaxy Fold has not one, not two, but actually 6 cameras, and the Mate X has 3 cameras, so 6 versus 3. Okay, so the Galaxy Fold has 3 cameras on the back, literally the same camera module as we have on the Galaxy S10 Plus. So we have a main camera, 12 megapixels, f1.5 to f2.4 aperture, so that's variable. That's pretty cool. We have a zoom camera, telephotos, so 12 megapixels, f2.4 aperture, and then the new wide-angle module, which is 16 megapixels, f2.2, without any optical image stabilization or autofocus. We have 2 cameras on the front of the Fold as well, when in tablet mode, actually the same ones again as on the Galaxy S10 Plus. So the main front-facing camera is a 10 megapixel f2.2 aperture, and the secondary front-facing camera is an 8 megapixel f1.9 depth sensor. And finally, we also have one more camera on the front of the phone mode, that tiny 4.6-inch 21:9 display, yes, that side. There's a single 10 megapixel f2.2 camera, there as well. So yeah, 6 cameras in total, which is crazy. Now, something quite interesting about the Huawei Mate X is that you have this hinge here on the side. So when you fold the phone, both sides are actually not really equal. But what's really amazing about this design is that those 3 cameras in the hinge are for both the front as well as the back. So when you're using the Mate X in phone mode, you have the large 6.6-inch display, and in this mode you can actually use those cameras as the back-facing cameras. But then if you turn the phone around, you would get the other half of the tablet's mode display, the one that's a bit smaller, 6.38 inches, and on the top portion of it you would actually see the camera interface being displayed, the selfie mode UI, which is pretty cool. So you still get a phone as well as that separate selfie mode UI. So yeah, really ingenious in terms of how Huawei managed to design this thing. In terms of the actual modules, we got the main camera, which is 40 megapixels, f1.8 aperture, and this has been co-engineered with Leica, the whole camera system. The zoom camera is 8 megapixels, f2.4 aperture, and then the wide-angle camera is 16 megapixels, f2.2. Interesting enough, the same specs on the wide-angle camera as on the Galaxy Fold. And then we also have a 4th module, kinda. So this is a time-of-flight camera used for 3D depth mapping and AR. And what's cool about the Huawei Mate X is that you can actually use those cameras for selfies, which means that you can actually take a 40 megapixel selfie on this phone. Now let's talk about video recording. So on the Galaxy Fold, you can do 4K video in 60 frames per second, as well as HDR10 plus video recording, and also 4K 30 on the front, which is really impressive. Now on the Mate X, you can actually do 4K 30 on the back. And yeah, that's pretty much it. 4K 30 on the back, obviously the same on the front because that camera is switchable. But yeah, also HDR video recording, but no 4K 60, which is a bit disappointing. Fun fact, this is actually a limitation of the Kirin 980 processor because that thing cannot do 4K 60, just 4K 30. So it's the processor that's the cause of this, obviously not the camera module itself. And speaking of limitations, on Samsung phones, there's actually a limit to how much 4K video you can record. So if you record 4K 60, you can only record up to 5 minutes, which is really disappointing. That's a huge downside. And if you record 4K 30, you have a limit of 10 minutes. You don't have this on the Huawei phones, and we're not sure about the Galaxy Fold just yet, but we've had this limit on the Note 9, the S9, the S8, the Note 8, so yeah, it's probably there as well. Now when it comes to the special features, both of these phones support 5G. However, Huawei claims that the Mate X is the world's fastest 5G phone. It actually has a separate modem, the Balong 5000 modem, which can get up to speeds of up to 575 megabytes per second on 5G, which is impressive, versus 288 megabytes per second on the Galaxy Fold. Now the Mate X also has supercharge, so it can actually charge 85% in just 30 minutes. So it comes with a special charger, 55 watts. Like, really? 55 watts? You get a 5-watt charger with the iPhone 10 and 10s, and you get a 55-watt charger with the Mate X. That's crazy. And there's also an NM card on the Huawei Mate X, so this is their own variant of a microSD card, so you can actually extend the storage up to 256 gigabytes of extra storage, and no, you don't have a microSD card anymore on the Galaxy Fold, or a headphone jack for that matter. We do have a side-mounted fingerprint reader on both, and we also have reverse wireless charging on the Galaxy Fold. Not sure about the Huawei Mate X, probably it hasn't been confirmed just yet, but we do have it on the Galaxy Fold. And then we also have a Gorilla Glass panel in phone mode on the Galaxy Fold, Jordan plastic, but yeah, other than that, all of the features, aside from these, are found on both of these phones. And also, from what I can see, none of them are water resistant, which is quite surprising, but also expected because of that hinge mechanism. Now, when it comes to the software on the Galaxy Fold, we have Android 9 among with One UI, which is Samsung's skin. And from the demos, from what I've seen, it actually seems to be way more ready than Huawei's software is. So Android does not support foldable smartphones and devices as of yet. Samsung has actually worked closely with Google on optimizing their One UI skin for Android in order to, support a fluid app transition from phone mode to tablet mode. And we've seen way more demos of the Galaxy Fold than the Mate X, so Huawei is still working on their software while Samsung is close to being ready. Speaking of ready, when are these phones going to be released? So we don't really have a specific release date for any of them. All that they've said was Q2 2019 for both. Now, we do know that Samsung is working with Verizon in the US for a release again around June-ish or so. And I do believe that the Huawei phone, the Mate X, would actually be released after the Samsung Galaxy Fold, quite a few months after. But yeah, I do expect around Q2, maybe Q3 even, for the Mate X. And finally, when it comes to the price, the Galaxy Fold costs $1,980, basically $2,000, and the Mate X costs $2,600. Yeah, quite a big difference in price between the two. Okay, so in the end, which one is worth it the most? Well, the answer is obviously none. So they're basically prototype devices that both Samsung and Huawei have released to the public or are releasing to the public mostly for PR purposes, and that's it. They're also crazy expensive, so if they were the exact same price, which keep in mind they're definitely not, I would actually go for the Mate X. Not only does it have a much better design, but you also get a larger display in both tablet as well as phone mode. The only big downside here is that, that creasing on the display, that's quite bad, which is expected to be there on a first generation device. And then also the fact that the display is made out of plastic, which means that it will scratch significantly easier than glass would. I mean, the idea of a tablet that folds into a smartphone is for you to have a device that does both a smartphone and a tablet, and something that costs less, or at least the exact same price as, having to buy both separately. And right now, none of them do. But yeah, just subscribe and notifications if you have enjoyed this video and you want to see more in-depth tech videos like this one. Also check out the previous comparisons with the Samsung Galaxy S10, and then also the iPhone XS Max and the Pixel 3 XL if you want to see, similar videos to this one. And then finally, let me know in the comments which one would you guys pick and why. The Galaxy Fold or the Huawei Mate X if they were the same price. And they're actually not. And then, like I said before, we're actually doing another giveaway this week of a pair of Sony wireless headphones with NFC pairing, so these ones. And if you want to win these, all you have to do is just be a subscriber to the channel ZONEofTECH and simply follow on Instagram at ZONEofTECH and leave a comment on this photo with the blue iPhone XR saying why would you want to win the Sony wireless headphones, and I'll be announcing the winner on Instagram via DM on March the 18th. So yeah, thank you for watching this video. I'm Daniel. It was a really fun one to make, and I'll see you guys in the next cool video, which should be tomorrow. So yeah, stay tuned for that. I'm Daniel. I'll see you guys in the next one. ZONEofTECH signing out. Cheers.